Wednesday, July 3rd, President Muhammadu Buhari assented to 9 bills passed by the 8th Assembly. Now, these bills include the Police Trust Fund Act, Nigerian Natural Establishment Act, the FCT Management Board, and the Health Insurance, amongst others. Now, there's said to be about 318 bills by the previous Assembly, out of which the additional 17 bills were rejected by the President. Well, why did some bills get the nod and the others actually pushed aside? And how soon do we get these bills implemented? Well, obvious questions, definitely there will be as soon as possible. But this and more questions we'll be discussing on the program this evening as I welcome you to Nigeria Today. My name is Blessing Abu. Now in the studio to discuss the topic, President Buhari assented to 9 bills. We would like to welcome the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senate, Senator Ita Enan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Nigeria Today. Now, out of the huge number of bills from the 8th Assembly, I know there were several on one of our other programs. You had talked about something about the bills that could not sail through before the 8th Assembly actually wound up. Now, what gave the push for these 9 bills that were sent to by President Muhammadu Buhari?
Now, the most important thing to say is that because a lot of people have said, that assembly is dissolved and the president is still signing bills. And the answer to it is that those bills were passed by the National Assembly before they were dissolved. That is the 8th Assembly.
Yes. And
so long as those bills were passed before then, they will still have to be forwarded to Mr. President for assent. But there will be a cutoff date for the forwarding of the bills, because most of the bills were passed and harmonized. Some are still undergoing, some have been harmonized but have not been reported, are still being forwarded to Mr. President. So since they were passed by a living assembly, and Mr. President was sworn in on the 29th of May. But the National Assembly, the 8th Assembly, sat up to and including the 6th of June, and actually stood dissolved on the 8th of June. So they were passed by a living and live assembly, as it were.
Okay, so for these ones that actually scale through, let's find out which, I read some of them.
Yeah, we had the Police Trust Fund Bill, we have the suppression of piracy and other unlawful offenses, the natural medicine bill, that is the bill that seeks to give live and vent to our traditional medicine research on it. Then we have the bill on primary health care of the Federal Capital Territory. Then we also have the bill on Federal Capital Territory Health Management Board. So these are some of the bills. Then the National Seed Council bill. And then we had a lot of other bills. There were a total of 9 that were assented to. And as at yesterday, and on that set, and again I will repeat, on that set that were declined or forwarded, that were declined after being forwarded after the expiration of the life of that assembly, 19 of them were rejected. Okay, so on that basis, because the assembly had, the 8th Assembly had actually been dissolved? No, it's not on the basis. They each had some issues, and like I seem to have explained, the president declined assent to bills on various reasons, either an avoidance of being in conflict with the provision of the Constitution, or there is an agency doing the same thing, or that what you seek to establish will take away the functions of the ministry, or what you seek to establish is no more necessary, or is a duplication of what is existing. So many of these bills suffered or fell under that. It's not because the parliament had ceased to exist. But again, please let me just explain this again. That ordinarily, if that assembly was still in session, President, His Excellency Mr. President, would have written to that assembly
Okay.
that is stating the reasons for declining assent to the bill. But he cannot write to them because the assembly that passed these bills had been dissolved by first the effluxion of time, because the Constitution says they shall sit for 4 years commencing from the date they were of their first sitting upon proclamation. And again, Mr. President issued a proclamation dissolving that assembly as at 12 midnight of
the 8th, 9th?
Of the 8th, 12 midnight of the 8th of June.
Yeah.
So he no more can communicate to that assembly. And he cannot, having issued a proclamation for the convening and having actually convened the 9th assembly on the 11th of June.
Okay.
He cannot communicate what the 8th assembly did to the 9th assembly. Okay. And so they cannot continue with those bills.
So what is going to happen? Because of course you were at a point in time parliamentarian, you said, would you still oversee between the executive and so what do you take into consideration when bills have suffered such rejection?
If those bills that have been declined assent, what happens to them is that we are going to have a back channel on the formal way of communicating it to the National Assembly, to the management of the National Assembly, clerk to the National Assembly, because that is the only person to whom communication can be sent, but not by the President. Now, we are going to give reasons for why each of the bills were declined assent. And when we give, it is for the persons who sponsored the bill or the interest group that promoted the bill. If they find that the reasons were not constitutional, if they find that the reasons were either drafting error, if they find that it was conflict with an existing agency, or it was omission of one thing or the other, or it was addition of a funding source, which without that funding source, other funding sources within the bill would still allow the agency or such what was to survive, they can now take that bill back to the floor and start sponsoring it from de novo, that is afresh, starting from first reading. Now, what again will happen is if the person did not return, any other person can take the bill and sponsor, if it concerns him or if he thinks he can drive it. And then what they normally do is that they will go for the bill, somebody will sponsor it in the House, somebody will sponsor it in the Senate, or they wait after it has been sponsored in the House and then passed in the House, it now sent to the Senate for concurrence.
Will you be going for fresh debates over it?
It's definitely going to go for fresh debate, because it is not the members that were here. Even if 359 of them had returned to the House, or 108 out of 109 senators have returned, they still will have to do afresh, because there is somebody and some constituency which was not party to it. So you cannot ask them to just start. But there is a procedure we used to have in the House of Representatives, which we had a shortened process of just by motion. If they re-gazette the bill as having, and then a shortened process is done. So they can afford to take that process. Okay.
Now, let's take a look, at least let's back off a bit. I keep going back to Friday. Okay, at least you have served in both the House as well as the Senate. Take us to the president. Okay, once bills like this come up, I'm asking this question because some of those ones that were not given a nod for assent, there could have been clauses, like you said, observation, which is against the Constitution. Are these bills not thoroughly debated through to actually, okay, this is what, if you're saying duplication of agencies, for instance, aren't this supposed to be things that could have been pointed out by maybe members or people who actually, once it comes on the floor of this of plenary?
I think this is one question that the present members of the National Assembly will have to give great attention to, because they should not leave debate or consideration of bills to the Secretariat. They should not leave it to the clerks. They should take personal interest and ownership of the legislation. They should go through it clause by clause and see what is in the bill. which is capable of infringing or not allowing it to. Now, for instance, if you want to establish a university, there are standard means of funding a university. And if you see how University of Uyo, University of Nigeria and Soka, University of Lagos and Lagos State University, you see how University of Ibadan is funded. And almost all of them are funded by the same way. And then you want to establish a university in my village, and then you come and put there that my local government will contribute. You put there that, for instance, we had that situation in Okeren Koko, this maritime university something.
Yes.
Now, they included there that NIMASA will fund. They included there many cities, and I'm bringing out this because this is one of the matters that Mr. President wrote to the National Assembly, drawing attention to what it were. And with those those unconventional funding sources, and you are asking this agency to contribute to a university without asking that agency whether it has the money. Two, that agency is the purpose for what it was established, and you are not amending the law establishing that other agency that you're asking him to contribute. And part of the functions of that agency is not the funding of your institution, which is coming later in time. Mr. President definitely will, after seeking the opinion of the Attorney General and appropriate agencies, which I won't want to name, now he will now come to a conclusion that assenting to this will cause problem. Therefore, the legislature should come to terms with the fact that they should have institutional memory. I had opportunity of delivering a lecture to the, not a lecture as such, I'm making a presentation at the inauguration ceremony, at the orientation ceremony of the new legislators. And I drew attention to the fact that they do not have to delegate their powers. That this is why they were voted for in person. And that is why you have persons of all standing, medical doctors, engineers, astronauts, great men of great standing, experienced people in public service, great professionals, lawyers of good standing, so that in every bill that comes before the floor, there are experienced people grounded in it. You are not just come to say, I, the eyes have it, you say I, the nays have it and you say nay. No, it is a highly intellectual, cerebral arm of government. And I repeat, it's a highly cerebral intellectual arm of government. And the example I used to give is that what you do, what you pass, is what the High Court will agree and say yes or no. What the Court of Appeal will agree, I'll say yes or no. What the Supreme Court. So if what you pass is what the Supreme Court will come to consider, then you have to go back and do great intellectual work. And again, you don't have to, even if for any reason, any of this escapes the eye of Mr. President and he gives assent, if it is unlawful, the courts are there to set it aside because they will take it and go to court. Therefore, the question of assent to bills is not a matter of course. It's not at the discretion of Mr. President. It's not discretion. It is at just, it is exercised judiciously, and in the public interest. In the public interest. For instance, if you want, we have so many universities, and you want to establish a total of 50 universities, polytechnics and colleges of education at once, and all the bills are well drafted, there could be something like public policy. Now, how do we have fund to fund all the 50 universities, polytechnics and colleges of education when what you've passed is not backed by finance or financing? This is some of this. If I draw attention to some of the bills,
and we will, because I was just going to say, we'll take a break at this point. When we return, we'll take a look at some of the bills that also did not make the fateful 9 for now, and let's further break them down, because definitely it's in the good of the public. That's why colleagues, parliamentarians actually push for them. So when we return from this break, we'll take a look at them and what next for us. You're watching Nigeria Today, and we're taking a look at the President Buhari's assent to 9 bills. We'll take this break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned into the program Nigeria Today. And my guest, Senator Ita Enang Silstead, is Senior Special Assistant to the President of National Assembly Matters, Senate. And we're taking a look at the bills assented to by Mr. President just Wednesday, 3rd July 2019. Okay, distinguished Senator, we actually took on aspects of education. Now, there were still some other bills. We talk about the national film or the film industry. There were some other ones as well, which is critical. Maybe while we'll try to touch on that, let's get back to the one that was assented, which is at least key as well. That's the Police Trust Fund Act.
Yeah.
Of course, we saw yourself and your colleague in the House talking about that.
The Police Trust Fund is intended to address funding of security. And the police seem to have been orphaned. The police seems to have been widowed. The police seems to have been decimated.
Anything but police league.
Yes, decimated. If you remember, and decimated, taken, all the children and grandchildren were taken away. And the children and grandchildren are better catered for. And used and better catered for, and they are now looking so robust, and the great-grandfather, which is the police, is now looking so lean and helpless. So the Police Trust Fund is intended to rejuvenate and restore the police to its glory. If you remember, the SSS, as it's now called, or DSS, was an aspect of the police. The Nigerian Intelligence Agency was an aspect of the police. The road traffic, what do they call it now?
Federal Road
Safety Commission, I beg your pardon, was a part of the police. The National Drug Law was part of the police. In the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency.
NDLEA.
It was part of the police. Then a lot of all these other were part of the police. Each of them, then EFCC was part of the police. ICPC was part of the police job. Even NFIU, Financial Intelligence, were part of the police. But you know, each of this, any person that is in power, has access, will cut it off and somebody will be Oga and take salute, you know. Now, and will be competing and will even say he's higher than the police. Meanwhile, the great-grandfather, which is the police, is decimated.
So is this bill going to give them that?
The intent of this bill is to make sure that the police is again funded, is again brought up, is given its pride of place. Now, the police is federal agency. But you see a situation, like I normally give example of my friend, now a distinguished senator, when he would buy vehicles, and okay, all governors, they will buy vehicles and say, I have given the police vehicle. Meanwhile, it is part of what ought to be their contribution as to the funding of security in their states. And they will say, Akwa Ibom has given to the police, Rivers has given to the police, Delta has given vehicles to the police. They will buy it at the cost, at very high cost. They will give it to the police everywhere. Other states that don't have, you know, that don't have enough to give to the police and support police in there will be breeding crime, and this crime will be affecting everybody in the. So they now say, look, let us have Police Trust Fund, which the equivalent of 0.5% of what all of them are entitled from the federation account is taken out and given to the police. The states will no more be obliged to say, look, I have given police
XYZ
20 vehicles, and you'll see they will only give vehicles of which they can always use. You know, they may not be able to give arms or something. Any very rare occasion, they'll go to buy arms in the name of wanting to give to police. They want to use buy arm to fund some illegal institutions, a little to the police. So it is intended to make sure that police is centrally better funded. It is also intended to provide for training of policemen. It is intended to shore up the morale of the policemen. Police uniform, police kittings, police. If you see SSS personnel, you will be happy. If you see officer of the intelligence agency, you'll be happy. If you see how road safety is treated, you'll be happy. Come and look at civil defense.
So
they are better.
This is going to show
intended to show up the image and the morale of the police,
which
and
is very critical
for them.
for aspects of security we're trying to
They also look at their barracks. They also look at the where they live. They look at the police stations, and you don't have to go to the police station and buy stationaries.
Okay, so that's a total overhauling for this fund to come and support. Okay, let's take a look at one of the bill, and my producer is insisting on this, this FCT Management Board bill as well as health insurance bill. For clarity's sake, which is the bill signed one or is both merged? Two bills in one. Okay.
Primary Healthcare Management Agency and the Health Management Board. So there are two agencies, you know. One of them is the big picture of the entire, what you have like a ministry. Although it is a board under the Health Secretariat of the ministry, but it takes up the whole holistic picture of health of the Federal Capital Territory. But there is, like we have at the federal level, you have the Minister of Health, you have it at the state levels also. You also have the Primary Healthcare Management Agency, the Primary Healthcare Development Agency or Primary Healthcare Management Agency, which looks at small clinics, small hospitals, small in different places. It's like
so there are two separate
there are two separate matters.
Okay, quickly to the Nigerian Natural Establishment Act.
Natural medicine.
Yeah, natural medicine.
What's the complete title?
Is it Nigerian Natural Establishment Act? That's
Nigeria Natural Medicine Development Agency.
Okay.
Nigeria Natural Medicine Development Agency. I'm sure a lot of us who are from, I wouldn't say Ibadan, I wouldn't say Akwa Ibom. You know, there is one place we have in my state, Ibom Hall Grounds, where people used to come and advertise so many medicine. They would bring different roots, different grass, and each of them cures everything. You know, you know. So the essence of this is to say, look, what did we? Is there anything that we go to India to take that is not here? Is there anything that comes from China that we don't take? Some people from Korea, from China, from India, they'll come. They say this is ginseng tea. They come, they say this is green tea. What is green tea? What is ginseng tea? It is the grass and the greens that grows in their own village, in their own village environment. We have they say lemon tea, they brought from India. But you have the real lemongrass in your backyard. You have
bitter leaf?
The bitter leaf, it is there.
Scent leaves.
All scent leaves, all this. You have mint leaf, which you grow in your...
So this is going to give a voice for...
It's going to give a voice for that you investigate and find out. And of course, there are this in my place that there are people who use different leaves to cure different things. But you know, as they grow old, they use it, they only show it to the child they love. They don't want to bring it out so that other people, and when they die, they leave it. So it's encourage those kind of persons to come out. We pay you. Come out, bring that. Let us investigate. Let us find out what you have, the potency in those drugs and all this. There are other traditional means of curing. There are other leaves and plants and roots which we've not been investigating. And sometimes a doctor told me, I heard a doctor say that, look, what is used for a sedative medicine, that sometimes it is the bark of yam, you know, is the bark of the tuber of yam. So those are being investigated. I'm not getting there.
I'm suspecting you have plenty of these herbs and roots behind your house. So this promotion will. Okay. So you need to come and share some of this knowledge with us.
I think I'll send you a deal.
Okay.
I'll send a deal.
No problem. Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Itainang. This is where we wrap up the program. And I'm sure as we take a look at these bills already assented to, implementation is key for us as well on what's to be done. And for those that were not given the nod, like you already pointed out, there will be representation and all of that. Okay. Thank you for being a part of this production. Join us same time again tomorrow for another interesting edition. Meanwhile, you can watch this edition or any other one at all at youtube.com/NTA News 24. My name is Blessing Abu. Have yourself a pleasant evening rest.